So we have this case where we have agents that are now happier and now able to focus on meaningful work. And there's this 56% of automations that are taking care of that tedious kind of copy paste stuff and processing. What does that look like for cost savings from the company perspective?
So typically cost savings for these kind of projects or improvements, it's 150,000 euros per year or more. Yeah, so most of the savings come from, so there's a chunk is of course the handling costs for the customer care team. So you need less time to handle a ticket, which of course makes the ticket cheaper, let's say. From a process perspective, it's also by just reducing a lot of error, because errors within processes, that's what's unnecessary cost, right? So by reducing those errors, you already remove a big chunk of the cost. And then there's the subsequential costs. So if the customer care team makes less errors, then of course the next team, which in this case was the warranty team or the warehouse team, let's say, they spend less on repairing stuff that wasn't supposed to be repaired or replacing parts that weren't supposed to be replaced.
Cynthia, I am so happy to talk to you because you work in the industry that we all know and love, which is customer experience and success. And I'd love for you to tell me just a little bit about what you do, your work, your company, and so we can get a little background on the awesome stuff you do.
Sure, I'm happy to tell you more about it. So I own my own company, which is called the 𝘂𝘃𝗀𝗃company. And I founded the 𝘂𝘃𝗃company in November 2022. And with the 𝘂𝘃𝗃company, I help other companies to improve their customer service. So customer service is my main domain, but of course it also touches customer experience, customer success, everything customer related, let's say. So basically my customers, they have a problem regarding their customer contact operations. So it might be something within the team that's not flowing well. But their biggest issue is actually that the costs are over budget, or there is a problem with processes or within the operations, but they can't really grasp what's going on, right? So that's why they get my expertise to help them get everybody smiling again.
Awesome. And then you know, just I guess just like a snapshot, like you, every time we've talked, you're someone that I feel like is very numbers focused, is very outcome driven, is very like you're such a logical, sequential process person. And like, what's your superhero journey like? What made you that way? Like, what made you get so excited about doing this for companies and working with companies like that?
So like I have really, really nice experience working at the customer care department. Like I really enjoyed it. And I thought it was, well, first of all, it was just really much fun to do it. I loved interacting with the customers. But I also thought it was a really great way to grow your career path, because it gives you so much touch points with different parts of companies, right? And also very close working with the customer. So that's where my enthusiasm for customer contact grew, I guess. But my background is actually in applied neuroscience in child and educational studies, which is a very data-driven study, right? So it's about recording big concepts, let's say, and translating it into actionable data. And that's where my love for data came from. So I really like to also in my work and in the field of customer care, to translate big concepts into actionable smaller concepts using data, because data is also a very easy way to paint a picture that everybody can understand. So I can say something is a big problem, but if I can express it in numbers, right? If I can say it's a 100K per day problem, then we already know what we're talking about. So it makes communication way easier.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I love how you said that data is a way for us to express big problems in a way that everyone can understand. That's great. And I think too, that's an awesome segue because you work a lot with Zendesk and Zendesk customers. And then of course, Knots, we're also on Zendesk and using our automations there. And that's how we first got in contact. Could you talk to me about you work with clients in this way, and then as I understand, you had a manufacturing client that in particular was having a certain issue. Could you talk to me about the problem that they were having, like what challenge they were struggling with, and even before you reached out to us, like what was going on?
Yeah, definitely. So this particular client, they are operating worldwide. So that means that their client base is also worldwide, which also comes with the first challenge, right? So we're talking about how to serve customers in their own localization, with their own habits and with their own formats. And the client is a manufacturing client producing parts. Those parts are being sold to their customers who are pushing it forward to the retailers, let's say. And sometimes it will happen that those parts, that there's something wrong with it. So the end user will bring it back to the retailer, and the retailer can file a warranty claim with my client, with the manufacturer. So in order to file this warranty claim, they had to fill out a ticket form in Zendesk, which is, I think, 20 ticket fields or something like that. And they have to submit an invoice. So that ends up with the customer care team, and they will review the extent to which the data filled out in the form actually matches the invoice. And based on the data in the fields, they will determine if something is in warranty and should be handled as such or not. So you already hear it's kind of well, we would say a headache file in Dutch. It's something that causes pain, right? So both for the retailer, the client, because they have to fill out this form, even though part of the information is already in the invoice. It's not great for the customer support team because they have to like manually check a ticket form against a PDF document that basically contains the same information. And it's also a headache for the next team in line because they have to work with the result of these manual checks. So that was the before situation. So after, that's maybe something you're also really interested in. After, what we did is we could make sure that the retailer, they still have to fill out a form, but it's a shorter form because the fields that are already detected by the invoice don't need to be filled out by the retailer anymore. What it means for the agent is whenever they receive a ticket, they don't have to do the manual checking anymore because it's already been done by NOTS. So the only thing that they might have to check is something that's not found in the invoice. So there's really an added value for their expertise and their knowledge to be put into that process. And then another really big winner is the team afterwards, because they are not handling the errors from the customer care team anymore. But what we're also looking at here is the retailer, of course, has a client that was using the part. So in the previous process, because it was so manual, it was a really lengthy process taking up days or maybe weeks to be handled, which doesn't only affect the retailer, but it also affects the retailer's customer. In the new situation, however, we have reduced the first response time by half. We have reduced the full handling time of a ticket by half. And this includes the customer care team and the next team as well. So that's great data, right? That's such a great result if you can, if you can just make such big reductions in handling time, in first response time, but also in the amount of updates that an agent has to do per ticket. So we have reduced the interactions between the retailer and the agent. So we have improved like not only the workload for the agents, the time that they have to spend, but we've also improved the customer experience for the retailer because they get faster answers, better answers, right? Better quality answers, less error. So the next team is also happy.
Okay, great. And then I know that you did, well, we could, this might take hours to talk about all the wonderful work you did with them and all the other things you did and foundational pieces, but I'm going to be selfish and I'm going to ask what did not solve for that client in that case when you talk about that complexity?
Yeah, I think not solved a great deal, but maybe it's good if I explain a little bit more about the process, so I can also explain the bottlenecks and where NOTS was really helpful. So in this case, a customer claims a warranty and submits an invoice. That invoice that ends up at the customer care team, but the invoice is accompanied by a ticket form. So a customer had to submit the invoice, but also fill out fields based with data either from the invoice or something that they knew, right? That maybe wasn't on the invoice. The combination of these two data points were submitted to the agent, and the agent had to manually check those fields. And based on certain values in the fields, so for example, for a warranty claim, you always want a purchase date. So such a purchase date is a very pivotal field to understand whether a warranty case is in warranty or not. So if you don't check that correctly, it of course leads to issues further down the chain, because you're handling warranty requests that are actually out of warranty. Maybe you cannot claim it from the supplier, you know, so there's a lot of interest in having clean data there. But wherever people are involved in checking data, of course, there's human error. So we were actually facing a lot of human error there. There's the human error for the customer submitting the form, and there's human error from the agent checking the validity of the data in the form, and so on. So, of course, you want to clean data, but there were two other aspects. So first of all, filling out this form, it was about 25 fields. And that's not really a great experience that you want to give the customer. Also, in the field of manufacturing, like if they have to enter that form, they were working with their hands, right? So they need their hands for other things than entering data into forms. So you want to shorten that time as much as possible. But also on the agent side, like as an agent, there was a team of so like high intelligent, very ambitious people that had so much more competences than just checking the validity of data. So the wish was to remove that manual checking part, also to make their life better, right? To make sure that they enjoy their work and that they can use their full potential in the work. So what we were looking for was a way to not have them check the data manually, but we still wanted to make sure that the data was reliable. And the majority of the data was already found in the invoice. So the challenge that we had is, how are we going to extract the data from the invoice and put it into Zendesk automatically without many errors? And my train of thought was, whenever I submit an invoice for my bookkeeping tool, for example, it already reads the invoice and it already fills out or recognizes data patterns. So I was really sure that that was the way to go. I just didn't really know where to find it. So I started searching, and that's how I ended up finding 𝗏𝗏𝗏. And the first tool that I got in touch with was the OCR reader. So the OCR reader, of course, extracts the data from the invoice and puts it into Zendesk, so it can be analyzed from there. And that was already a great step, right? The first step.
For anyone that's not familiar, OCR is an app that we have, optical character recognition, that can read attachments and PDFs or Excels or photos or handwritten documents. So that was one phase. And then the other one, you also went on. What's the other one that you had that you wanted to share too, that you used as a solution?
Yeah, so the second step, so we wanted to extract data patterns already from the invoice. And we were first looking at another tool also from 𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is the ticket parser. And with the ticket parser, you can define patterns, for example, date patterns, and it will find it on the invoice. But the challenge that we had here was, because the customers are worldwide, everybody has their own date pattern. So in the Netherlands, where I'm based, for example, we will write day, month, and then 4 digits for the year. Where in the US, it will be month, date. But then there's also countries that are more familiar with writing the digits of the day and then the letters of the month. So there were so many options, and we could not find a reliable way, and which is also highly maintainable, right, to use the ticket parser for that. So I got in touch with the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 team, and I was also telling them about the challenge that we had, and they suggested to us to try the AI ticket autofill, which was at the time was a new feature, so it was still in beta, I think. And well, they told me about the cases that they were already working with, and I was very excited just to test it out. So we started testing with finding the date patterns, and yeah, as we went, we extended the search to more patterns that were highly usable for us, and would really take away that work from both the customer and the agent. It also raised the question, like, do we still need invoices, or is there another way of handling things? So I think that was the first and the biggest gain, just to have a mind shift on, okay, the way that we're doing things right now doesn't necessarily mean we should continue doing it like that. Like, there's other options.
Okay, you talked about before and after a little bit. Let's talk about the accuracy.
Yeah, so the accuracy is something that I was very interested in to know, right? Because I felt like it would be a great move to implement 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. But of course, we needed to make sure that it was an improvement not only on the speed of processing, but also on the correctness of the data. So what I saw is, in the before situation, when a human was entering the data and a human was checking the data, we saw a correctness rate of 74%. However, after the testing with the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, with the AI ticket autofill, we saw that there was a correctness of 94%. So that's a huge difference. And of course, if we're only looking at correctness, it's already great, but the processing time was also way shorter, because 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 will process the invoice before the ticket is handled by an agent. Whereas when a human is checking the data, there's also the waiting time from ticket creation until the first touch of an agent. So it was very easy to build a business case based on the data will be correcter, the processing time will be shorter, but also the whole time it will take to process a full ticket, or the ticket handling time for the customer, it will also decrease. And that's what I kind of call like the ultimate win-win-win. So it's better for the customer, it's better for the agent, and of course it's better for the company, or maybe represented by the management, but everybody wins from this situation.
I love what you just shared. Yeah, and it's interesting because I think whenever I talk about Zendesk optimizations, or even like how we look at these businesses, sometimes we're so deeply involved with it that it's interesting to get into the real technicality of it. But like, what happens from a day-to-day basis if we wake up as a customer service agent at this manufacturing company that you help now? Like, what is it like? What sounds like before, from what you said before, it looks like this. They wake up, they have like a lot of things in the queue that they have to click on each ticket, then they have to download the PDF, then they have to find that number, then they have to make sure that they type in each number correctly and that it's not wrong, but they're wrong a good percentage of the time, unfortunately, even though they try. And then that error might create other problems. And then they're also doing that and doing data processing while they also have to do human complex work and serve these clients and create answers and things like that. So I guess that's before. Now paint the picture for me after, now that they have 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏s involved with this process, now that you're automating a good portion of it.
So what it's like right now. So they wake up in the morning, and when they start working, there are tickets already in a handling queue for them. So they don't have to sort the tickets themselves, but they already know that the tickets that they are working on, that they are definitely tickets that need their attention. Tickets are either in warranty or they're not in warranty. So in case they're not in warranty, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 has already handled those tickets. So the only way that an out-of-warranty ticket can pop up with the agent is because there's still a response from a customer, or there's something that cannot be auto-processed. But basically, for those tickets, what's already great is the customer directly has his answer, can continue his day, and he doesn't have to wait for the backlog to be processed, and have to wait for a couple of days. So that's already great. Then for the cases that are in warranty, there's a big chunk that can be automatically processed, which has already been prepared by 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. And there's like a fault category, and those are the cases that cannot be automatically processed. So those are the cases that the agents need to put their attention to. So what we're talking about is a reduction of 56% of the ticket volume. So there's 44% of the ticket volume left that the agent needs to give their attention to. A second thing that this agent will also notice is that the amount of responses or updates that an agent needed to put in a ticket has been reduced from an average of 3 to 1. So that also means that 𝗏𝗡 is really actively helping in preparing the tickets for the agents.
So we have this case where we have agents that are now happier and now able to focus on meaningful work. And there's this 56% of automations that are taking care of that tedious kind of copy paste stuff and processing. What does that look like for cost savings from the company perspective?
So typically cost savings for these kind of projects or improvements, it's 150,000 euros per year or more.
Is that from a combination of things? I mean, part of that is the error that they're saving from the back and forth, and or where do most of those savings come from?
Yeah, so most of the savings come from, so there's a chunk is of course the handling costs for the customer care team. So you need less time to handle a ticket, which of course makes the ticket cheaper, let's say. From a process perspective, it's also by just reducing a lot of error, because errors within processes, that's what's unnecessary cost, right? So by reducing those errors, you already remove a big chunk of the cost. And then there's the subsequential costs. So if the customer care team makes less errors, then of course the next team, which in this case was the warranty team or the warehouse team, let's say, they spend less on repairing stuff that wasn't supposed to be repaired or replacing parts that weren't supposed to be replaced.
Right. So it sounds like it's interesting because I think we work with a lot of different clients too, and then it's interesting because like we have one client where errors, they told us at the first conversation that they wanted to bring us on for something, and that errors, just the errors, it wasn't even about the speed of processing, were costing them $30,000 to $40,000 a year because they had this issue with, like, when there's an error created, they get fined if it's not processed the right way, or like if the number is wrong, they'll get fined for those things. So that's crazy that what a smart way to first measure the human error involved, and then you can have that before and after take. And then also what you shared about with manufacturing, like that's really interesting because, right, if a manufacturer has a situation where this difference in the amount of warranties that are actually able to be processed and are valid warranty claims is like a 20% difference, then that means that they're gonna lose 20% of that money to false warranty claims or incorrect warranty claims that then they'd have to fulfill. And what a hassle, what a big problem for them, because they're treating these warranties as if they're correct and confirmed, and they're sending them new parts, they're sending them help, they're getting customer service involved, when it should have just been stopped from the very initial email or initial outreach and just been informed that it's out of warranty. Crazy. Yeah, what a wonderful way to optimize that. And I know also that you work with all sorts of clients, and especially in the realm of Zendesk, and we talked about manufacturing, but I know that you cover all ranges. I guess my very last question, maybe a cool way to wrap this up, is companies are always at a different level of maturity. And so I guess it's always like what fire to put out first. Do you have any advice or recommendations for other Zendesk admins or customer service directors or people that are in this realm and the challenges that they're going to face, or like when they're faced with a certain challenge like this, like any advice for them?
Yeah, so I think in general, one thing that I think it can really make a difference and doesn't happen too much, it's actually two things. First of all, try it yourself. Like, try working on the processes yourself that you're struggling with. Because I think what happens a lot is people design processes, they implement them, but they don't really try them. And then they see all kinds of issues coming up, like, the costs are too high or the process is taking too long. But just try it, feel what's happening, and understand what you have to improve. And the second part is data. So measure it, like you hear people say stuff like something is taking too long, but what is too long? Like, is it on average? How many seconds is it? Like, how much does a second cost? Like, how can you improve processes more data driven? I think that's a really overlooked part and a very important one. And I think last but not least, I said there were two, but actually there's always a third one. Especially within the field of customer service, we're working with people for people. So it's all about people, and it's really about that people experience, the customer experience, the employee experience. And you have to make sure that whatever you're doing, it has to fit those two groups. Because if the customers and the employees are like happy in the processes that they're working with or that are working for them, it will definitely translate into the rest of the company.
Awesome. And I think for me, I'll kind of end with how we started, which is this amazing thing that you just said, which was data is a way for us to express big problems in a way that everyone can understand. And I love that approach. And thanks for having this conversation. And yeah, if anyone wants to get in contact, I'll tag you and I'll put your information there. And is LinkedIn a good way, or what's your preferred way for people to reach out?
LinkedIn is a great way. Like, it's very easy to connect or send me a DM. I'm very quick to respond. So please feel free to reach out. And of course, there's also my website, which is thecaringcompany.nl, where you can reach out, where you can book an appointment, where you can send me an email or a message, where you can find more information about what I'm doing, who I'm helping, and what my expertise is.
Thanks, Cynthia. Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.